The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Millions of stars watched as the Empire's colossal warships appeared in the skies above distant moons, their weapons gleaming cold and silent. 7 million human prisoners of war were gathered, herded into massive open arenas. The Empire wanted a show, a display of absolute power, and the galaxy would witness it all. On Earth, every screen flickered to life. Families froze, hearts pounding. Governments issued emergency alerts, but no one could prepare for what came next. The Emperor's voice, smooth and merciless, echoed through every channel. Observe the consequences of defiance. This is the fate of your kind. Then the massacre began. The broadcast showed humans being obliterated, one after another, in slow, calculated waves. Soldiers, scientists, civilians, no one was spared. Entire families captured for resistance or mere suspicion were wiped out before millions of eyes. Across the globe, people screamed. Some fainted, others clutched their loved ones in helpless horror. It was not just death. It was theater, designed to crush the human spirit. Yet even as despair gripped the world, sparks of defiance appeared. In the command bridge of the Starfire, Captain Alara Voss's hands clenched over the console. Her chest burned with rage and sorrow. "They think they can break us," she whispered, eyes glistening with tears. "They are wrong." Her crew, haggard and mourning, nodded silently. They had seen the broadcast. They had lost friends, comrades, and family. But surrender was not an option. Humanity might bleed, but it would never bow. Across the earth, cities filled with grief-stricken crowds, but also with whispers of resistance. Mothers and fathers wept openly for the sons and daughters they would never hold again. Children stared at the screens, their young minds trying to process horror. Yet beneath the shock and sorrow, a stubborn flame ignited. Humans began to talk, not just about loss, but about justice, about survival, about revenge. The Empire had killed millions, but they had awakened something far more dangerous: the human will to fight. Alara sent coded messages to scattered fleets and hidden resistance cells. "Do not despair. They want fear. We will give them courage. We will give them fire." Across the galaxy, humans on secret colonies received the signal. Even in isolation, even in hiding, they felt a surge of hope. The Empire had expected silence. They had expected terror. They had underestimated what it meant to be human. Meanwhile, survivors on the distant moons huddled together, mourning yet planning. Every death was remembered, every name spoken. Each survivor swore silently. Those who had fallen would not die in vain. Their stories, their laughter, their courage, all would fuel a rebellion the Empire could never crush. The broadcast ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. But on Earth, in hidden bunkers and starships preparing to flee or strike, in the hearts of every survivor a promise formed. Humanity would rise again. It would rise stronger, faster, smarter, and angrier than ever before. Captain Alara Voss looked out at the stars from the bridge of her ship, the light of distant suns reflecting in her eyes. "We are the ones they tried to erase," she said softly. "But they cannot erase us. We are human. We endure, we fight. And one day, we will win." Across 7 million graves and countless shattered lives, humanity's voice seemed to whisper in unison. It was not a cry of fear. It was a roar. The galaxy had witnessed the greatest atrocity in its history, but it had also witnessed the birth of a reckoning. Humanity would not die quietly. Humanity would not vanish. Humanity would rise, and the stars themselves would remember their fury. The streets of Earth were silent, but the silence was heavy with grief. 7 million human lives had been erased in a single unthinkable act. Cities were draped with banners, memorials, and shrines. Names were written on walls, in parks, and even on the hulls of ships that still hovered in orbit. Every life lost had a story, every death a memory. Humanity's mourning was immense, but beneath it, a spark of defiance began to glow. Families huddled together, their eyes hollow with sorrow, yet their hearts burned with anger. Survivors walked the streets, speaking in whispers about the atrocities they had witnessed. Scientists, engineers, and soldiers who had escaped the Empire's grasp began gathering in hidden labs and abandoned stations. They shared information, built weapons, and trained young recruits. Even in despair, humanity's drive to survive and fight remained unbroken. Captain Alara Voss moved swiftly through the shadows of her command fleet. She had seen the broadcast, had watched her friends die, and felt the unbearable weight of loss. Yet she refused to surrender to despair. Her fleet, small but determined, was now humanity's first true hope. Every ship, every soldier, and every hidden base became part of a growing network. Alara's voice over encrypted channels became a rallying cry. We may be broken, but we are not defeated. Every loss is our weapon. Every memory is our shield. We will rise. Elsewhere, scattered human colonies and hidden outposts felt the same fire. On a mining colony in the Orion sector, survivors whispered of escape plans. On a research station near the edge of the galaxy, scientists debated ways to strike back. Humanity was no longer just a planet. It was a network of minds, hearts, and hands united by grief, fear, and determination. Every death had fueled a silent promise. The Empire would pay. The Empire, arrogant in its power, believed the humans had been crushed. They dismissed the whispers of rebellion as the desperate fantasies of survivors. But they underestimated humanity's resilience. For every ship destroyed, every outpost burned, humans adapted. For every plan the Empire executed, humans countered. They were not organized like the Empire, but they had something more dangerous: imagination, courage, and a refusal to submit. In secret, Alara convened her council. Scientists, military strategists, and civilian leaders crowded into a hidden room aboard the Starfire. Blueprints, star maps, and communication logs filled the walls. The council debated strategies: small raids, sabotage, intelligence gathering. Every plan had a common goal: to remind the galaxy that humanity could not be erased. Alara's voice cut through the tension. We are not fighting for territory. We fight for every life lost, for every scream silenced, for every memory stolen. The galaxy will know what it means to threaten us. Back on Earth, people began leaving messages for the fallen. Children painted murals of smiling faces. Parents built gardens in their memory. Every act of remembrance was also an act of defiance. Humanity's culture, its art, its memories, these were weapons the Empire could never destroy. The ashes of the fallen became the soil of a new rebellion, and every survivor planted seeds of hope. Even in the darkest hours, humans found moments of courage. Hidden fleets moved silently through enemy territory, delivering supplies to secret colonies. Scientists discovered ways to shield their ships from detection. Every minor victory, every escaped prisoner, every whispered plan strengthened the will of humanity. The flames of resistance were small, but they burned bright against the darkness, and so the world mourned, but it did not bow. Humanity's grief had forged a new purpose, a promise whispered across star systems: they would rise. The Empire might have taken lives, but it could not crush spirit. Humanity's eyes were fixed on the stars, and their hearts carried a burning truth. No matter how deep the ashes, life and vengeance would grow from them. Months passed since the broadcast, yet the memory of that day haunted every human. Earth had become a quiet, solemn world, but in hidden hangars and secret bases, humanity was far from defeated. Ships were rebuilt, weapons recalibrated, and fleets trained in the dark. They were smaller than the Empire's armadas, but they were fast, smart, and relentless. Humanity had learned that survival demanded cunning as much as courage. Captain Alara Voss paced the bridge of the Starfire, her eyes scanning tactical displays. Every decision mattered. Every ship and crew were precious. Today, she said quietly to her officers, we take the first step. We remind them they cannot destroy us, not now, not ever. Her words were not just commands, they were a promise. Each officer felt the weight of the 7 million lives lost, and a fire sparked in their hearts. Their target was a distant colony under Empire control. Humans had been captured, forced into labor camps, and kept in brutal conditions. Intelligence reports indicated that hundreds of prisoners might still be alive. Every life rescued was a victory, a message, and a chance to honor those who had already died. The journey was tense. Humans navigated asteroid fields and cloaked their ships to avoid detection. Every signal, every anomaly was met with caution. The Empire had not forgotten them, but they had underestimated the resilience of a species that refused to bow. And when they reached the colony, what they saw chilled them. A planet scarred by occupation, prisoners beaten, and the skies patrolled by drones and warships. Yet the humans did not hesitate. The assault began in silence. Cloaked ships slipped past defenses. Landing teams infiltrated compounds, and escape pods were readied. Humans moved with precision, trained to strike without hesitation. The first explosions were carefully timed to disable power grids, not to harm prisoners. Then alarms blared and the Empire responded with fury. But by then it was too late. Hundreds of prisoners were freed, running toward the waiting ships with tears in their eyes. Alara watched from the bridge, her chest tight with emotion. She saw the fear, disbelief, and then the hope on the faces of those rescued. Each smile, each embrace was a victory beyond measure. "We are here for you," she whispered. "We will not abandon anyone." Her words carried across the galaxy like a spark lighting a fire. The Empire retaliated swiftly, sending fleets to intercept the humans. Explosions lit up the void of space. Ships were lost and brave pilots gave their lives to protect the fleet. Every casualty was mourned, yet every sacrifice strengthened their resolve. Humans had learned to turn grief into courage. They fought not only with weapons but with the memory of those who had fallen. By the end of the battle, the human strike had succeeded. Hundreds of prisoners were safe and the Empire had suffered damage they had not anticipated. Across hidden colonies, survivors listened to encrypted transmissions of the rescue. A new word spread among humans and allies alike: hope. Humanity's first strike had been small, but it was proof they could fight back. They could endure. They could win. Back on the Starfire, Alara gathered her officers. "This is just the beginning," she said, her eyes shining. "The Empire thought they had ended us. They were wrong. They have only awakened something far stronger than fear. Humanity remembers. Humanity fights, and humanity will not stop." The freed prisoners looked up at the stars, tears on their cheeks. They had lost everything, but they had been given life again. And in that life they carried the memory of 7 million who had perished. Every heartbeat, every breath was now a weapon against the Empire. Humanity's journey of vengeance, survival, and triumph had begun. The galaxy had watched humanity fall, but now it watched humanity rise. The first strike was small, but it was enough to shake the foundations of an empire. And for the first time, humans knew a truth that could never be taken from them. Even in the darkest hours, they could shine brighter than the stars. The first strike had been small, but its impact rippled across the galaxy. Hidden colonies, long under Empire control, whispered of humans who refused to die. Survivors who had once hidden in fear began organizing. Farmers, miners, engineers, and teachers all took up arms in secret. They repaired ships, crafted weapons, and trained fighters. Humanity's rebellion was growing, quiet but unstoppable. Captain Alara Voss knew this was only the beginning. From the bridge of the Starfire, she watched encrypted communications flow from distant systems. Each message told the same story. Humans were resisting. Every colony that joined the effort made the Empire nervous, though it did not yet admit it. The galaxy had believed humanity broken, but they were awakening a force no weapon could destroy: hope. In a hidden laboratory on a distant moon, scientists worked tirelessly. Particle disruptors, stealth engines, and energy shields were tested in secret. Every invention was designed for one purpose: to challenge the Empire. They were not just building weapons, they were creating tools of liberation. Every formula, every blueprint, every calculation, one scientist said quietly, is for those who cannot fight anymore. For the 7 million, we owe them nothing less. Alara trained her fleet relentlessly. Every mission was a lesson in strategy. Every drill a reminder that humanity had survived impossible odds before. Pilots learned to strike swiftly, escape quietly, and never underestimate the enemy. Soldiers studied the Empire's tactics, knowing that brute force alone could never win. Humanity's strength lay in ingenuity, courage, and unity. Meanwhile, the Empire continued to mock humans. They broadcast messages across systems, calling humanity pests and their rebellion meaningless. But the humans listened not to fear but to resolve. Every insult, every threat, every act of arrogance only fueled their determination. The galaxy's smallest, weakest species was learning to fight like a storm. The rebellion's first coordinated attack was planned meticulously. Hidden fleets aligned with humans on secret colonies targeted key supply routes. They disabled communications, captured warships, and freed prisoners. Every operation was precise, minimizing casualties and maximizing impact. The Empire had vast power, but humanity had precision, courage, and the willingness to risk everything. As word of the rebellion spread, oppressed species began to take notice. Some reached out, offering intelligence, resources, and safe havens. Alliances formed quietly like sparks joining a growing fire. Humans had become a symbol of resistance, Proof that no empire, no matter how vast, could truly crush a determined people. On Earth, memorials to the 7 million became more than just remembrance, they were rallying points. Citizens visited them daily, leaving flowers, notes, and candles. Every act of mourning became a promise. The fallen would not be forgotten, and their deaths would shape the future. Humanity was learning to fight with grief as its fuel. Alara watched her crew with pride. Young soldiers who had never known peace were becoming warriors. Engineers, scientists, and medics worked tirelessly to support the fight. Every role mattered. Every person mattered. Humanity's strength was not in numbers or firepower. It was in unity, in the courage to stand when all seemed lost. The flames of rebellion were spreading. From hidden colonies to secret bases, from liberated prisoners to Earth itself, humans were rising. They were not yet strong enough to destroy the Empire, but they were strong enough to make it fear them. And fear, the humans knew, was the first crack in any tyrant's armor. In the dark of space, Alara whispered to her fleet, "We are more than survivors. We are the reckoning." Every act of courage, every life saved, every small victory, it all matters. The Empire will learn that humanity does not bow. Humanity does not break. Humanity fights, and humanity will rise. And so, from the ashes of 7 million lost, the galaxy began to feel the first heat of a fire it could not contain. Humanity was no longer silent. Humanity was no longer hiding. Humanity was a force, and its rebellion had only just begun. The Empire believed itself invincible. Its fleet stretched across hundreds of star systems, its warships unmatched in firepower, its officers trained in tactics honed over centuries. From the marble halls of the Imperial Command, leaders mocked the humans' rebellion, calling it desperate and insignificant. Pests, they said, scurrying in the shadows, believing they can fight gods. But the humans were already moving. Every whispered plan, every stolen piece of intelligence, every secret weapon built in hidden labs was a thread in a growing web. Captain Alara Voss knew the Empire's arrogance would be its undoing. The more they underestimated humanity, the stronger humans became. Every small strike, every liberated prisoner, every sabotaged supply line fed their resolve. Alara stood on the bridge of the Starfire, staring at the galaxy beyond. The fleet before her was smaller than any Empire armada, yet her eyes burned with determination. "They think they've won," she said to her officers. "They believe we are broken, but we are alive. We remember, and soon we will show them the price of their arrogance." In hidden colonies, scientists tested particle disruptors, stealth engines, and energy shields. Engineers worked day and night, repairing ships, enhancing engines, and crafting weapons that could pierce the Empire's defenses. Every breakthrough was a promise. To the 7 million who had been lost, a promise that their deaths would not be forgotten. The humans' first major coordinated attack on the Empire was planned with meticulous care. They would strike at the command station, controlling supply routes, crippling communications, and forcing the Empire to respond. It was risky. Failure could mean annihilation. But humanity had learned that courage was born in the shadow of fear, and strategy was forged in desperation. Meanwhile, the Empire continued to broadcast messages across systems, flaunting its power. It showed footage of captured humans, claimed total control, and promised swift punishment for rebels. They believed these messages would crush human morale. But the humans heard not despair but determination. Every insult, every lie, every act of hubris only strengthened their will. The Empire did not understand grief turned fury. They did not understand humans. In the fleet's training halls, soldiers drilled tirelessly. Young pilots learned to fly in asteroid fields, to dodge laser fire, and to strike without hesitation. Engineers ran simulations, creating strategies to counter superior forces. Even medics were trained to handle battlefield emergencies in the most impossible situations. Every human understood one truth: the Empire would never surrender, and neither would they. Alliances with sympathetic alien species were forming quietly. Some had suffered under the Empire's rule. Others had merely witnessed human resilience and courage. They offered supplies, intelligence, and safe passage. The galaxy was beginning to see that humanity was not alone, that even the mightiest empire could face resistance if it underestimated those who refused to bow. Alara's strategy meetings became a ritual. Every plan was debated, every possibility examined. Her officers, many of whom had lost families in the broadcast massacre, worked with relentless focus. "We do not fight for territory," she reminded them. "We fight for every life stolen, every scream silenced, every memory erased. Our victory will honor them all." The Empire's hubris blinded it to danger. It continued to rely on overwhelming force, assuming that humans were too weak, too scattered, too grieving to pose a threat. But Alara knew that fear could be weaponized, grief could be transformed into courage, and determination could topple empires. The stage was set. The humans were ready to strike, not recklessly, but with precision, strategy, and unbreakable spirit. From the ashes of 7 million fallen, a force had risen that the galaxy had never seen. The Empire might still rule with fear, but humanity was about to remind them that courage, unity, and memory could be more powerful than any weapon. Alara gazed at the stars one last time before battle. "They will learn," she whispered, "that humans do not die quietly. They do not vanish. They rise, and when they rise, empires tremble." The galaxy had begun to whisper a dangerous thought. Humans could fight back. From hidden colonies to secret bases, the resistance grew stronger with every passing day. Humanity had survived genocide, and now it was ready to change the rules of the war. Every strike, every act of courage, every freed prisoner became a spark in a growing fire. Captain Alara Voss watched the reports from her bridge, her eyes scanning the status of fleets across distant systems. Humans were no longer reacting, they were striking. Supply lines were crippled, communication hubs destroyed, and Empire patrols ambushed. Each victory, no matter how small, shook the Empire's confidence. For the first time, they faced a species that refused to bend, that refused to die quietly. On Earth, memorials of the 7 million lost had transformed into symbols of hope. Children left flowers and messages of courage. Survivors visited daily, whispering promises to the fallen. "Your sacrifice will not be forgotten. Your memory lives in us." Each act of remembrance strengthened humanity's resolve. They were not mourning only, they were preparing. Every tear shed became a vow of resistance. Allied species, inspired by humanity's courage, began joining the fight. Their fleets moved silently, striking Empire convoys and sharing intelligence. Even species that had long avoided conflict found themselves drawn to the humans' cause. Humanity had become a symbol, proof that even the smallest, weakest species could defy an empire if it refused to bow. Alara led the most daring operations herself. In one mission, a fleet of human ships slipped past Empire defenses to liberate a labor camp on a distant planet. Hundreds of prisoners who had once thought freedom impossible were rescued. Their cries of joy echoed across the stars, a sound of life defying death. Alara stood on the bridge watching them board escape shuttles. Her eyes filled with tears. "This is why we fight," she whispered. "This is why we survive." Meanwhile, the Empire scrambled to respond. Its high command, for the first time in centuries, felt fear. Ships that had once been unstoppable were now vulnerable. Entire convoys disappeared into ambushes. The Empire's arrogance had blinded it to a crucial truth. Humans were unpredictable, resourceful, and united by something no weapon could destroy: their will to survive. On every front line, humans fought not just for survival, but for vengeance. Pilots dove through enemy fire, engineers repaired crippled ships under bombardment, and medics risked everything to save the wounded. Each act of bravery reinforced the belief that humanity could endure anything. The galaxy watched in awe as humans turned grief into strategy, loss into courage, and memory into weaponry. As the battles raged, humans also struck at the Empire's command centers, disabling fleets before they could respond. Coordination across planets and colonies had become flawless. Signals were encrypted, attacks precise, casualties minimized. Humanity had learned from its losses. It had adapted, and with each small victory, the hope of the galaxy shifted. Back on the Starfire, Alara addressed her officers, her voice steady but burning with passion. "We have survived what no one thought possible. We have endured genocide and stared death in the face. Now we fight not just for ourselves, but for every species that yearns for freedom. The tide is turning. The Empire will feel what it means to underestimate humans." For the first time, humanity saw a glimpse of what victory might look like. They were no longer the hunted. They were becoming hunters. They had risen from the ashes, and the galaxy was beginning to see that the humans who had been slaughtered were not gone. They were stronger, smarter, and fiercer than ever. The turning tide had begun. Humanity's courage, unity, and memory were reshaping the war. The Empire's reign of fear was cracking, and the stars themselves seemed to whisper, "Never underestimate humans." Alara gazed at the stars, her heart swelling with pride and determination. "We have risen from death," she said softly, "and we will not stop until justice is ours. The galaxy will remember that humans never surrender. We fight, we endure, and we will win." The final battle was coming. For decades, the Empire had ruled the stars, believing no species could challenge its might. They had slaughtered 7 million humans on live broadcast, thinking that fear and death would end a species. They were wrong. Humanity had survived, endured, and risen stronger than ever. Now the time for reckoning had arrived. Captain Alara Voss stood on the bridge of the Starfire, her eyes fixed on the Empire's capital station. Millions of human hearts beat with hope, rage, and determination. Every fighter in her fleet understood what this battle meant. Not just victory, but justice for the 7 million who had died, for the families broken, for the screams silenced. Humanity was no longer a victim. Humanity was a storm. The human fleet moved through space like a shadow, cloaked and silent, waiting for the perfect moment. Allied species flanked them, striking from unexpected directions. Every weapon, every strategy, every lesson learned from past skirmishes had been prepared for this day. The Empire's arrogance had made them predictable, and humanity was ready. The first strike hit the Empire's defense grids with precision. Explosions lit the void, ships erupted in fire, and alarms blared through the capital. The humans pressed forward, undeterred by the Empire's counterattacks. Each move was calculated, each maneuver designed to save lives while dismantling the enemy's power. Alara's heart ached as she passed the coordinates of the final enemy command. For every explosion, she remembered the 7 million who had perished. Their faces, their voices, their courage, each life lost fueled her resolve. "This is for them," she whispered to her crew. "Every strike, every victory, every breath is for those they tried to erase." Empire warships fought fiercely, but humanity's strategy and unity proved unstoppable. Smaller, faster ships darted through fire, striking at weak points. The Empire's largest vessels, once symbols of unchallengeable power, fell one by one. Humanity had turned grief into courage, rage into strategy, and memory into weaponry. Inside the capital station, the Empire's leaders realized their mistake too late. Their arrogance had blinded them. The humans, who they had thought broken and desperate, were more organized, more relentless, and more fearless than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The command towers collapsed, communications failed, and the Empire's fleets were scattered. Finally, Alara led her flagship into the heart of the capital. She stared at the once mighty throne room of the Emperor, now empty and silent. Humanity had struck not just at ships and stations, but at the symbol of oppression itself. The galaxy had witnessed the greatest atrocity in history, but now it witnessed the greatest triumph. Humans who had been hunted, tortured, and slaughtered were victorious. As silence fell over the battlefield, survivors across the galaxy cheered. Freed colonies rejoiced, and humanity's allies celebrated. Humanity had endured genocide, had suffered unimaginable loss, and had turned their grief into power. They had survived the unthinkable, and now they had shaped the future. Alara gazed out at the stars, tears streaking her face. She thought of the 7 million, of the families lost, of the sacrifices made. Humanity had risen from ashes, stronger and wiser. The Empire was broken, but the humans were whole. They were united, proud and unstoppable. From Earth to the farthest colonies, humans stood tall. They had proved a truth no empire could ignore. Never underestimate humanity. They could endure, suffer, and rise stronger than any weapon or fleet. Their spirit was indomitable, their courage unmatched, and their will eternal. And so the galaxy remembered. Humanity had survived genocide, toppled an empire, and claimed its place among the stars. The memory of the fallen burned bright, not as despair, but as inspiration. Humans would never forget. They would never bow. They would never be broken. Humanity had won, not through numbers, not through technology alone, but through the greatest weapon of all, unbreakable spirit. Captain Alara Voss whispered to the stars, "A promise to the 7 million. We are alive. We remember, we fight, and we will never ever be defeated. The galaxy would never forget humanity again."